Have you ever asked yourself why a country that defeats aliens on a regular basis couldn't defeat Iran? Well, the answer is simple. This isn't a Hollywood movie. How did Iran, a non-nuclear power, win a war against two so-called nuclear superpowers and their puppet allies in the region? Iran has been around for at least 12,000 years if we consider ancient villages like Maimand. Studies show that cavemen lived there and drew paintings on cave walls. Even today, after 12,000 years, people are still living there. But here's the funny part. Trump thinks he can scare Iranians with nukes. He tweeted that an entire civilization could disappear and never be brought back. Well, at least Iran has a civilization. The only thing Trump had was Epstein Island, and he lost that. Maybe that's why he's so mad. Iranians have endured far more dangerous men throughout history. Trump is only dangerous to the kids in his neighborhood. But why, despite threats of nuclear annihilation, the bombing of school children by the US, more than 3,000 sorties every day, 50 days of bombing missions over Iran, thousands of cruise missiles, and the destruction of Iranian infrastructure, couldn't the United States win this war? How did Iran do it? Get ready, because what you're about to hear would make any tyrant in the world furious. If you're like me and watch a lot of movies, you've probably figured two things out. First, the US Army always wins. Second, they're always the good guys fighting evil. But despite all of that, on the first day of the war, they killed 200 children between the ages of 6 and 11. The school was hit twice. To show the cowardice of the invading army, they did that to maximize the kill ratio and also kill the people who went inside the school to help the injured children. But despite that act of atrocity and 2 months of bombing Iranian civilians and infrastructure, the so-called mighty US surrendered. But why? Because Iran had a super weapon in its hands that the master genius Trump didn't have any clue about. But what was it? Well, to understand that, you have to take a really close look at Iran's military. Iran didn't have any modern fighter jets. But why? You could say because of sanctions, but that's not the main reason. If Iran were to use fighter jets against the US Air Force, it would be fighting an unwinnable battle. Imagine if America went to fight the German Air Force. Although Germany has an excellent Air Force, they wouldn't have much of a chance against the US. Iran knows that, so it changed the rules of engagement. Instead of fighter jets, they used cheap drones like the Shahed 136, which costs around $20,000. The shocking part is that if America sends a fighter jet to intercept that drone, the cost of fuel and flight time alone can be between $60,000 and $80,000. The missiles used to shoot it down are even more expensive. A Sidewinder costs around $500,000, while an AMRAAM costs around $1 million. If the drone slips past them, air defenses try to shoot it down. A Patriot missile costs around $4 million. In some cases, we even saw, out of desperation, Shahed 136 drones being engaged with THAAD systems, where each missile costs around $15 million. That is 750 times more expensive than the drone itself. The US burned through over 70% of its stockpile of interceptor missiles, which were mostly meant to stop Russia and China. Because of this war, Russia and China now know how weak the US is. It's basically a paper tiger that can't even defeat Iran. Both countries will likely take advantage of this situation. And remember, we're not even talking about Iranian ballistic missiles yet. Satellite images show that Iran destroyed 16 major radar installations in the region. These radars were specifically designed to detect and intercept ballistic missiles. That's why at the beginning of the war, Iran had to fire around 30 ballistic missiles for 6 of them to hit a US base. But by the end of the conflict, they could fire 6 missiles and all 6 would hit the target. But the biggest advantage Iran had in this war was something they didn't build. It was something God gave them before Iran was even born. You might have heard Trump talking about invading Iran. If you saw me at the same time, I was probably laughing. Not because of the stupidity of Trump's statement, but because of how illiterate and uninformed it was. Did anyone in the US military ever show him a map of Iran? Iran is one of the most mountainous countries in the world. In the north, it is protected by the Alborz Mountains, with peaks reaching over 5,800 meters. In the west and across much of the south, the Zagros Mountains stretch for thousands of kilometers, with many peaks reaching 4,600 meters. At the center of the country lies a desert so hot that you could practically cook under the sun. Just imagine this. In America, Death Valley can reach around 56 degrees Celsius or 134 degrees Fahrenheit. But in parts of the Iranian desert, temperatures can reach 70 degrees Celsius or 160 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are directly exposed to the sun in the Iranian desert, you could become unconscious within minutes, and without help, death would be certain within hours. This is how much of a genius Trump is. Because Iran is a natural fortress, any ground invasion would be a massacre for American soldiers. But now add FPV drones to the equation. Ukraine is mostly flat land, and with the use of FPV drones, they have managed to stand against Russia for years. But remember, if President Putin had ordered the destruction of all Ukrainian infrastructure, including schools, many believe the operation would have ended much sooner. Now imagine Iranian forces using the same FPV drones from some of the tallest mountains on the planet, hiding among the terrain while American soldiers try to move through it. Of course, that might work in movies and video games. In real life, it would be a completely different story. That is something I would actually pay to watch. But just remember, US soldiers reportedly had to pull their aircraft carrier out of the fight. The USS Gerald R. Ford in March 2026 was viewed by many Iranians as having been hit by an Iranian missile, while official US statements said a fire started in the laundry room. I honestly don't know which version is more embarrassing. Many people believe the sailors were so scared that they practically set their own ship on fire. Now imagine sending those same troops into Iran, into a battlefield where the Russia-Ukraine war would look like a joke by comparison. That's why Trump sent large amounts of weapons and money to Kurdish groups to fight Iran. The Kurds took the weapons, took the money, and according to many critics, simply scammed the US government. I feel sorry for ordinary Americans because Trump is their president. This guy has managed to make life in the United States absolutely miserable. American people are under pressure, and so are Iranians. But that's where the difference begins. Why did the war between Iran, the US, and Israel begin in the first place? Because Iran was the first nation in the region to stand against Israel. For 5 decades, Iranians have endured the pressure of sanctions, 5 times harsher than those imposed on North Korea. To put that into perspective, if you put even 5% of that pressure on most countries, they would collapse within a decade, just like Syria and Libya. But the most important part is that Iranians chose this path voluntarily during the 1979 revolution in solidarity with Palestine. Before the revolution, the average Iranian salary exceeded that of many Americans. In fact, soldiers sent to Iran before the revolution could earn 3 times their normal salary from the Iranian government. But today, the average Iranian salary is around $150 to $250 per month. Even 2 decades ago, it was closer to $1,500. So you can see that the nation of Iran believes it is on the right side of history. Its motivation is not money, but honor. Now, if Christ were to come to earth right now, which side would he take? Iran's side, or the side of the United States and Israel? If you visit Iran, you can see train stations named after the Virgin Mary. You can see sculptures of Christ and his mother displayed with the highest respect. You can see churches throughout the country that were built and preserved with government support. Yet when you look at Israel, you see disturbing images. Let's put them in comparison side by side. That raises a question. If Israel respects Christianity so much, why do these images exist? And if that is the case, why is the most powerful Christian country in the world fighting alongside them? Well, Iranians believe they know the answer. They are fighting for something greater than themselves. That's why, while the US was bombing Iran, millions of Iranians were out in the streets day and night, showing support for their country. Meanwhile, the so-called chosen people were hiding in the deepest underground shelters their government had built for them. If they are God's chosen people, why are they so afraid to meet him? We all know the answer, but what I don't know is this. 30% of viewers make it to the end of my videos and still refuse to subscribe. It takes just 1 second, and it's completely free. It takes me a lot of time to write these scripts, record the videos, and edit everything together, usually around 2 days of work. So please, take 2 seconds to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. Your encouraging comments give me the motivation to keep making more videos. As always, it was an honor to fly over the Middle East with you. This is Eastwind Brigade, where our voices unite and we rise together.